Hi. All right. Hello. How are you, Nick?
I'm so good.
Oh,
So
good.
good. Yeah, ready.
Ready. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hello, Giants. And just want to welcome you out to Limitless with Shawnalee. And so, Limitless with Shawnalee is all about you and expanding your mind and expanding your current place of being. And this is where we explore universal laws, we explore different books, different things, opening up to receiving the greater parts of us and aligning with our higher selves, expanding and stretching our minds, stretching the possibilities, alternate realities, quantum leaps, universal laws. And once a mind is stretched, then it can never go back to its current state of being. Yeah. So tonight we have Nicholas T. Smith with us, and we will be going over the art of accomplishment. If you haven't had this, I suggest you pick it up. So thank you, Nick.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's awesome.
Yes.
That was one of my originals back in the day, that book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one in the green goo.
Yeah, the green goo. Did you read that?
Yeah, and the sowing the seeds.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, there's a few of them out there that there's how I went from zero to number one in sales in 6 months, and then the green goo is funny. It's about duck poo. So
Yeah,
I wrote that with my kids at the park.
I love it.
I started rhyming. I couldn't stop.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, what brought you to the art of accomplishment? And tell me a little bit about the story of its creation and how
Yeah,
that came into form.
you bet. So back, this would have been, I think I started writing it right in line with the Giants and the Small. So I had a similar journey in both.
Yeah.
But I was writing a blog back in the day.
Ooh,
It was called NTS Motivations, Modevations, and this is going way back. So this is when I first got my start in coaching, and the the book. So I would take my blog posts and I compiled them into a book. So I learned from Steve Chandler that you don't have to have long chapters for a book
yeah.
to be a book, right? So he would write one-page chapters, or page and a half or two, at the most, and so he popped out 30 books, and a lot of those were bestsellers. So he was one of my mentors back in the day,
Oh,
and I had watched him do his books, and I thought, why not? Let's do it. Let's go for it. So I took my blog posts and I compiled them and created my first book, The Art of Accomplishment. So these were all my thoughts that I'd been posting, and then I was able to just truncate them down. There's actually a book called Do This, Be That that I wrote back then that I haven't published, that I think I'm going to pick up and republish as Be To Do. And
oh,
so that will come out by December 31st of this year, and that'll go straight to print. It'll be a self-help book, but I'm really going to dive deep on that one.
I
And
love it.
so with this one, I didn't know what I was doing. I had some friends help me out with the editing and the layout and design, and so we got it print on demand through Lulu is how I did that, and I put
Oh,
it out there. I just created my book, and it's been sitting there since 2011, I think, is when I got it published. And
wow.
a lot of people don't know about it. It just kind of it really didn't do anything. It didn't take off.
Oh, well, there's no reason why it can't now. I mean,
Yeah. Hi,
yeah.
Natalie. Yeah.
Hello, Natalie. Thank you for coming. Um, what was it like to work with Steve Chandler?
Oh man, that guy's
Tell me a little
phenomenal.
bit.
He's Steve Chandler's got a way of being. So he was mentored by Steve Hardison. And so I connected with Steve Chandler through Steve Hardison. So back when I had the experience with the Giants and the Smalls in the parking lot, because I've told that story,
Yeah.
Steve later connected me with Steve Chandler to go through his coaching curriculum. And so I went out to San Diego and worked with him directly. And I was in the same course as Rich Litvin. And Rich Litvin's huge in the coaching world. I mean, he's one that
Yeah.
just took off. And so Steve Chandler is one of those that he's no BS, but he's got
Mhm.
systems that just work. It's like when it comes to coaching and creating clients, he just knows how to do it. And now he has a program out. I think Ryan signed up for it, but I don't know what it's called. But it's a coaching creation program. And Steve Chandler he's funny. He's dry. It's like
Yeah.
talking to Garfield. Like, I used to listen to his recordings so often. My kids, when they were little, they would laugh and they'd jump on and say, "Hi, I'm Steve Chandler," like in this deep, drony voice. And they just knew like his stuff because I would just listen to it constantly. You know, books on tape, CD back in the day, before Audible. But he's incredible. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but Steve Chandler is one of my mentors that I just absolutely adore. You know, just good human. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long were you into the blogging world?
Since about 2008, kind of the end of 2008, I started writing my thoughts, my poetry. I started sharing my poetry. So that's in there as well. The website's still up. You can still find it. And this
really?
The blog posts are still there. You can see them. And it's spelled weird. Here, I'll post it in the comments.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you post that so people can check that out?
So it's kind of cool to see the evolution of things, right? Like, so I'll send that out there. So I started with wherever I was. I didn't know how things would pan out. You know, now we have the Tribe of Giants and the Giants and the Smalls and Wake Up with Giants TV. But back then I didn't know what I was doing. I just started writing. And so I got clever with my name, and NTS Motivations, which is not very exciting. It was clever to me, but it wasn't anything memorable, you know, MODE, like a model, like a mode, and then motivations. But I just started. I just would share my thoughts and hopefully somebody would hear them. And, you know, when I said I wanted to become a speaker, I started speaking. I didn't know how to find gigs or do things, you know, I just started. And and I was terrible at it. And I think you'll see that in my book, The Art of Accomplishment, is one of my favorite comments in there. And this is one of the things I told coaching clients when I started out is you've got to be willing to suck at something long enough to get good at it.
Yeah.
And most of us won't let ourselves suck at things. We don't want to look bad. We want to be the walk-on, the all-star, you know?
Yeah.
But the truth is you're going to go through that phase.
Go through that phase, like the perfectionism phase.
Yeah.
Where you don't even allow yourself to start something because you're not in that space to be able to allow yourself to suck.
Yeah. You have this mindset that, well, I can't look bad. So you don't let yourself, right?
Yeah.
But it's all inside of you, right?
Yeah. As within, so without. And for me, I was stuck in that fear phase for a little while and just didn't allow myself to succeed. And then what I went into, as you talk about in your book, is you talk about the insanity cycle.
Yeah.
And from there, also you talked about promises and how promises, you can make promises and you're like, oh, well, I'll change and I'll change and I'll change. And how many times have I said that? So, you know, I know. I know what I was.
I titled that Change to Promise because I did that constantly back in the day. I would just make promise. I promise I'll do better. I promise I won't do that anymore. I promise I'll do this. And then I kept doing it. Right. Yeah. So like to change to promise is you start being different and then you don't even have to make those promises anymore. It just shows up. Right. It's like people can start counting on you. They know what to expect with you. You're consistent.
How do you make that change? Is it something that you do just overnight, or how would you go about that?
So going back to the insanity cycle, right? So the idea that we have these thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions, and then we start to make decisions from that, and we get so automated in our way of being that we can't even see it. So the goal is unconsciousness, right? But it's from unconsciousness that we really have to wake up and start changing things, because we might not even know that we're doing it. I remember a story that Steve Hardison shared about a boy sucking his thumb. He would suck his thumb and he was totally unconscious to it. And he said, when you catch yourself sucking your thumb, pull it out of your mouth, right? That was the behavior. So make a change. And then, you might go unconscious again and you find that your thumb's in your mouth and no big deal. You just catch it and then pull it out of your mouth and change the behavior. And then eventually you're going to catch yourself having your thumb come up to your mouth and you'll stop it at that point. And then eventually that behavior is extinguished, right? And so the idea here is if you're unconscious to the way you're showing up in the world, there's nothing to do. If you continually show up unconsciously, you're going to get results and you're not going to know where they're coming from, right? And so the first step, and this is in the Giants' journeys as well, is you've got to wake up. So you got to create awareness somehow that you've got a behavior that's not working. So when it comes to changing like who you are on the inside, part of that is awareness. And what I see people do is they create that awareness and then they go right back in because they go into this space of feeling bad about it. They feel guilty, they feel shame, they feel grief, they feel depression, anxiety, and then they numb out and they go right back into their routine. So there's no change. And so really sitting through the discomfort of, I've got some really shitty behaviors, right? So sitting through that and being aware of it and working to change it. It might take time. But you just stick with it. You keep going. Yeah, and we can nerd out right here if you really want to. I could talk about the neurobiology of it if we want to.
Yeah, I would. I like to nerd out.
Okay, let's dive in.
Let's dive in.
So I'm going to use my arm as the analogy here is you have neurons in your brain and they have a cell body, the neural center. It's like the brain center of the cell. They have an axon, which is the arm of the cell, and then they have dendrites and synaptic connections. So these dendrites branch out and they branch to other neurons and they connect over there so that it can pass information to the other one. So what happens is when they fire all at once, all in one direction. Everything. They don't pause halfway through and stop. Right? So they fire and it goes all at once, everything. And so what happens is we create a behavior and the body goes to work to support that neuron. And so it has what are called glial cells in the brain. And the glial cells are support cells. They're support structures that go in and hold everything in place. They make for efficiency. So on the end of your dendrites, you have what are called astrocytes that connect one cell body to the next. So they connect that synaptic connection. They wrap it so that you're not losing chemicals as you fire. So as it jumps across that gap between one synapse and another, the astrocytes help ensure that more chemicals get across that jump, that gap. And then anything that's not used gets reabsorbed so it can be used somewhere else, right? So that's what astrocytes do. What they also do is hold the structure in place so that it doesn't move around. So as you're jostling around, it's not messing things up. Then what happens is as you fire it, oligodendrocytes come in and they start wrapping the axon of the arm with what's called a myelin sheath. And so as it fires over and over again, it starts adding more and more myelin over that axon so that it can fire faster and faster and faster. So the fastest neuron in your body fires at 268 miles per hour. The slowest is at about 1 mile per hour. So if you put your hand in the fire, which neuron do you want firing?
The one that reacts.
The one you don't have to think about, right? At 268 miles per hour, that's faster than a Bugatti Veyron at full speed. Oh, wow. And so that's quick. I mean, it's going so fast that you're not even conscious of it at that point. But when you have a new behavior, so you have a neuron that stretches out, it says, hey, we got a new behavior here. And so it stretches out, it finds a pathway that would be the most efficient, it starts firing. And then as you fire again and again, it starts to support it. So it says, this is important. We need this. And it doesn't care whether it's a positive or negative behavior. It doesn't care. It's going to support you. And so it goes in and it starts wrapping the synaptic connection. It starts wrapping the axon so that it can fire faster and faster until at one point it's unconscious. You don't have to think about it anymore. And so when you think of old behaviors, think of how much you've done it so that whole process is already in place. So if you go try and stand in front of a train to stop it, tell me how that's going to go.
not very good. I think
Yeah.
as you're talking about this, I think of Joe Dispenza, and he's like neurons that fire together, wire together.
Okay. Yeah.
And so now it's creating those new neural pathways, if I'm speaking correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're probably the expert on this, but that it changes. And so it's definitely working on those. What he talks about is when you're waking up in the morning and you're in that theta brainwave state, instead of getting up, because most people, they get up on the same side of the bed, they go brush their teeth with the same hand, they go to the bathroom, they shower the same, they do everything the same unconsciously, like you just
Yeah.
said, like
Yeah.
with those habits and behaviors and changing those thoughts and behaviors. So he suggests in the morning that you go through and, like, as soon as you wake up and you're still kind of in that theta unconscious state, to then go into a meditation and seeing your life as
Yeah.
if it was already the way you want to be. And I know that you talk about that as well, and
Well,
seeing that come.
I want to continue on this for a minute because this is powerful. If people will slow down with this, just that information, when you know how your body works, then
Yeah.
it makes understanding how creating behaviors is going to come about. And so it's not about stopping an old behavior. It's about rerouting energy to a new behavior. So when something comes up that's an old behavior, let's say that
Yeah.
I don't know whatever it is, like let's say you're doing things that are not very nice. So going back to the change to promise, I used to do things
Yeah.
that were not very nice, but I was so ingrained in them and so in routine with them that they were just present. They were so automatic that I really almost didn't have a say in them. But the
Yeah.
moment I became conscious of them, I could start to reroute them. And so as I rerouted and practiced into that, this is where you've got to be willing to suck at something long enough to get good at it comes in. Because as I'd practice and I would stretch into that, then it would reroute, and that became the new connection. The old connections are still there. If under the right circumstances, I could bring those back to life. I could go back down that old path and be just a real doucher if I need to. So,
Yeah.
but the idea is we don't want to do that. The goal is to reroute and create something new and a new, healthier behavior. And so, but it's not by standing in front of the train. Like these people that say, I'm going to use sheer will to stop this. And you think about the marshmallow experiment that was done, right? And most of the kids, they said, if we'll give you one marshmallow, but if you can wait 10 minutes, we'll give you two. And they put it right in front of them. And they just looked at that marshmallow and they're like, oh, and they're trying everything, right?
Yeah.
And they give in. Most of them give in, right?
Most of them give in. And there's a few that wait.
Yeah.
Like
But
one or two.
the beauty is that if there was some kind of rerouting in that, and it wasn't a sheer will of resistance, because you have this limit of power that you can exert towards resistance. But if you can reroute, kind of like mental aikido, like instead of trying to fight it, you just work with it and you rotate it around and you just move it, right? It flows, but it's flowing in a new direction that you're creating. Then you're able to sit for 10 minutes or longer because you're moving that energy in a new direction. You're not trying to stop it. It's that trying to stop it that is so hard for most people.
And that just causes that resistance. And what resists persists.
Yeah. And you break down, right? You get mentally exhausted, and then we go back to our comforts. So here's another thing that happens is when you're empowered, when you're calm and your body is relaxed, you have full power of your brain. When you're not feeling stress, you have your full brain working at full capacity. And I've seen it where people, when they're in full capacity, they're just different people. Like when I go into fight or flight mode, my brain shuts down. And you think of the size of the amygdala that starts taking control of your brain. It's pea-sized. It's tiny. And it sets in your brain. And what it does, it shuts down the cognitive function so that you can go into survival mode. And your behaviors change, right? Because you're operating with literally a fraction of your brain when you go into that mode. And so it makes sense that when you go into that space, the first thing you got to do is figure out, how do I calm down from that? Because if there's no true danger around me, I got to get my brain back, which is important for change, because without it, you start reacting to things and you start fighting things that aren't there. They're just not there.
They're just not there. It's your perception.
Yeah. Yeah. And your perception is limited because you just shut off most of your brain for
Yeah.
survival. And
So
so,
how do you get back into, how do you pull yourself out of that flight or fight or freeze mode?
well, the goal is to not get there,
Yeah,
right?
not to
But
get there.
for many of us, so I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety in 2017.
Yeah.
So I had it enough that a doctor, and it was a psychiatrist, said he did all the tests and he's like, yeah, you have moderate generalized anxiety disorder. And I tried everything. I tried meds. I tried everything. Barry McDonough in his book Dare was the best thing that I ever did, because what he created is this idea. So Dare stands for diffuse it,
Mm-hmm.
allow it to be there, run toward it, don't run away from it, and then engage in life. Because here's the thing that happens is, yeah, you might have that energy hit you and you're affected, right? Affect is simply somebody else's energy hits you, and that creates an affect or an effect in you, which can impact your emotions. And so when those emotions hit you, if you can diffuse it, well, there's anxiety again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling scared. You
Yeah.
identify it, but you don't identify it like I'm scared, I'm anxious. You don't say it that way. You say it as, there is that, and it's a third party thing in my environment. It's not me. It's just this thing that's happening. So if I'm feeling anxiety, the first thing is diffuse it. Well, there's anxiety. You might even give her a name or him a name, right? Like
Yeah.
there's Karen again. If there's any Karens, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Right. So if it comes into your space, you're gonna do that. And then to allow it to be there. Like I use the analogy of the bus, right? If you're on a bus and all your emotions are passengers, well, you're the driver of the bus. So let's say anger steps up and starts yelling, and this isn't my analogy, it's borrowed, but it starts yelling. Then if you engage with anger and try and shut it down, you're no longer driving the bus.
You're not.
Right?
Yeah.
You're engaged with anger, and it'll win every time. I talk about the bear in the field. Like you're driving down the street and there's a bear in the field. Great. There's a bear in the field. You don't have to move the bear. You can let the bear be in the field. There's no issue with that bear being in the field. But the issue comes when you think the bear shouldn't be in the field.
Yes.
Right? I shouldn't be feeling anxious. I shouldn't be feeling angry. And then you go fight the bear and the bear just pummels you. I don't know if you saw there was that salmon ad on YouTube where the guy goes and fights the bear and they have this whole karate match over salmon or something. It's not, you ought to check it out. It's funny.
I got to check it out.
But that's what we do with our emotions is we don't give them space to be there. I mean, we don't chase happiness off. We don't just sit there and try and run it out of the house.
No.
Why would we chase any other emotion? Happiness is as much emotion as anger or depression or sadness, and but we give room for that. Why wouldn't we give room for the others?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes we let fear overcome us or take us. And then when you get into that lower cycle, you're not only receiving just your thoughts, thinking of like thought vibrations, you're actually receiving thoughts from other people too, because you're on that same field. And so then therefore it's harder to overcome that. But if you can sit back and if you can breathe, if you can take a moment and just check in with yourself and not resist it, because what resists persists, and then get yourself back to that centered state so you can change.
So think of the body, the way the body is designed. One of the best antennas that you'll find was designed for cell phones. And it was a gentleman that he couldn't get signal on his antenna on his roof for like TV. Oh, yeah. And so he went up there and he had seen a fractal shape, like a snowflake shape. And he decided he's going to bend the wires to build that. Yeah. So he bends the wires in these pyramid type shapes. And he starts receiving all the signals, not just TV, but radio and everything else that's out there. Like this one design created that. And if you think about the human body, it's fractal in design, which means if you look at lightning or rivers or highway systems or networks, neural networks, computer networks, it doesn't matter. Here I go, Amber. The F word's coming out.
Fractals.
The beauty is that life is designed around a fractal pattern, which is an indication that energy once flowed there, or that energy does flow there. So if you see a river and water's flowing through it, it branches out into tributaries and brooks and all these things. Lightning does the same thing. Our highway systems are set that way. So when you're on a highway and you get off on a side street, now you're on a street, and then you get off on a court or a lane or it breaks down into smaller and smaller degrees that are all self-similar. Our bodies are designed that way. So we're constantly putting energy out, like you said, putting it out, but also we're designed as receivers. And so if you're not fully empowered in your body and you're stressed out and it shuts down and pulls all that blood flow back in for survival, well, then you're not able to receive either, right? And what you're broadcasting out is limited because you're in that survival state. And people are different in survival mode. They just are. Can I swear on here?
Yeah.
Fucking different. They're fucking different. I'm fucking different. Like, we're not the same people when we get in that space.
We're not.
We get scared and we start reacting from scared, and we start being that, and it shows up in everything that we do. And it's like, if we could get ourselves calm and start to really be in that space, then we can play with creation. But there's nothing to do when you're in survival mode. Your job when you're in survival mode is to get calm. I'll get the fart in there too, Amber. There's all three. The triple F.
The triple F.
That's all we talk about is farts, fractals, and the F word. So
been there. Yeah. So then you go into in the book, you talk about going from the insanity cycle to the Urn Cycle and earning it, but then also being in that space that, if I want to be confident, show up as confident. Tell me a little bit about that and how you transition.
Isn't it funny? Like when we hear things like that, well, just be confident. We go immediately to how do you do that? Right.
Yeah.
Like our egoic mind says, okay, show me the path. And then we show the path and it's like, well, I'm not the person that wants to do the path. Right. I see how many how-to manuals are there out there, and most people won't touch them. They won't even look at them. Like I could give you all the step-by-step processes to create that way of being, and you still wouldn't be it. You wouldn't do it. And so a lot of it is when you create a way of being, it's defining who you are when you go into a situation, who's showing up. And that's a creation. And so when I say a creation, this is the how-to. If you want to look at it, is who are you creating yourself to be? So if I want to go into a meeting with somebody and a certain person needs to show up, this isn't that fake it till you make it. That's not what I'm talking about here, because that's masking it. What I'm talking about is for that to be a successful meeting and for you to show up powerfully, who needs to show up? You create yourself as that as much as you can with what you know. So if you don't know enough, you have somebody support you and coaching you into creating yourself as that. And it's a declaration and a way of being. And by that, it's everything about you. It's like how you talk, and it's how you show up and how you hold yourself and what you say, and also what you put in, because a lot of what you pull out of there, your intuition comes from what you put in. Intuition is sometimes stuff you can't explain, but most of the time it's stuff that you've plugged in. So your intuition, your gut check, your gut feeling based on research is whatever you've been putting into your body. So if you don't have any experience about it, a lot of people will say, well, I don't know. So I'm uncertain. So I have this really bad feeling in my gut that this is the wrong thing. Well, the only thing that's happening is your body is saying, I don't have enough information.
Yeah. Not enough information.
Yeah. Or experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could be going into that, a little bit of that fear cycle.
But to choose who you be, right? So I create myself. I have a declaration, I am giant. What does it mean to be giant? Well, that means I'm reaching for my potential. I'm the mystical giant, right?
Yeah.
And so that means I look for truth wherever it is. I don't need religion for that. So I look for truth wherever it is, whatever it looks like. I am salmonic action. Salmonic action is another topic that's in there. Salmonic action is the idea that a salmon can sit perfectly still in the roughest of waters, not even move a fin. And then at the moment of opportunity, will shoot lightning speed upstream, not downstream. And when we look at the chaos around us, most people, when it's chaotic, they float downstream. They're in the mix of it. If there's something with politics, oh, F the politicians, F, this party or that party or whatever sports team they're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Salmonic is, if I'm in a situation that's rough, being able to hold perfectly still in that and look for opportunities gives me an advantage over others, right?
It
Because
does.
while they're freaking out and going downstream, I'm looking for things to do, things that can help me move forward.
Yeah, help you move forward. And then once that action comes, you
Yeah,
take that action.
you can. Yeah. But these are declarations, right? Like, I am
Yeah.
that. So where am I not? This is your greatest opportunity, is where am I not that? So if I say I'm salmonic, where do I go downstream in my life? If I
Yeah.
say I'm grateful in my highs and graceful in my lows, where am I not that?
Where am
Because,
I with that?
yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just go and rant. So you stop
No,
me.
I love it. Do you uh, what keeps coming to my mind is like imagery. Do you
Yeah.
go in and do you visualize and create that, not only through like your words and speaking, but do you visualize in your mind
Yeah.
before you go into things?
Yeah, I don't know that I do it in the way that most people would do it. I keep a journal. It's called the 5,000 Things Journal. I keep mine online. I have one in paper form too, from our friend Nadine Larder.
Yeah.
But I like online stuff because I have it handy on my phone and it's
Yes.
easy, right? And I don't have to worry about anybody snooping because it's private. I keep it private there. And when I write a vision, whether it's for myself or a creation, I write it as though it already is. And I'll put a date on it for today, but this is some future event that I'm describing as though it already happened. So I create my event as though it is. And I do that in the creation and in the releasing of things too, because there are things in our life sometimes that don't work, that don't align.
Yeah.
And so speaking those out of creation is also a thing for me. And so I will create it as though it already is, and in a way that serves not only me but anybody that's involved. And so when I create my visions, I learned this from Catherine Lee and others who are powerful at it. Lydia Nibley, she calls it a pre-membering of things. Catherine Lee says a memory of things yet to be, right?
Yeah.
And so when you write the memory, it's like I'm telling you about an event as though it happened today. And you're like, wow, that's amazing. I'm not telling you how I did it necessarily. I'm just saying this happened and this happened and this happened. And this was there and that was there. And this is what it looked like. This is what it felt like. And you write it in that way so that you can start to connect with that vision. But it hasn't happened yet, right? So when I share my vision of the movie, right? Well,
Yes.
people are like, I can't wait to see the movie. Where do I go see it? It's like, well, it's not here yet, right? It's
Yes.
a creation. I'm creating it. Steve Hardison called it that all things are created spiritually before they're created in reality. And when we create our world, a lot of times we're envisioning what we are desiring, and then we build it out in our mind or on paper, and then we work to bring it into reality. We collaborate with others. We draw out a plan as much as we can with what we know, and then we work toward it daily. But we're so imperfect at it, right?
Yeah. Where the hell is
it? Right?
Yeah.
I just think, like creating yourself is the same way. Who am I is a declaration of who you are, and then working toward that, like becoming that, and which is where your body comes in to support you to make it automated so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Well, the body's the subconscious mind.
Yeah. Tell
You
me
get
about
it
that.
into this
Yeah.
mind, then you get it into the body mind, and then the body takes over. So I've been working on reprogramming my subconscious mind. And part of that, so like in a weight loss journey, you come upon old habits and old beliefs, like as you're shedding the weight of things that you have held, because our body holds like the trapped emotions as well.
Yeah.
And so really speaking to myself, like I'll listen to different things at night. So I'll listen to like sleep meditations. Brian Scott's one of my favorite ones that will tell me, this is my way of being. Like, I'm abundant, I'm beautiful, whatever I'm working on at the current time. Then
Yeah.
also spoken affirmations. And then I also have my little vision board, which
Yeah.
is
Beautiful.
in the like a little physical form, so that I could carry with us. And then I also have my big vision board that I go to every day, and releasing that. So one of the events that I had created was Spartan last year. And like, I wasn't even planning it. So I was planning the year before to do Spartan, and I was working really hard towards it. I had created that vision. I just felt like my kids there at the finish line, and I imagined myself jumping over the fire, and them coming and cheering me on. Well, I let that go. I released that. When we were on lockdown and everything, the gyms were shut down, so that like changed the whole momentum. And I hadn't planned on doing Spartan last year. It was just, I had received an email that came like 18 days before. And it was like, Shawnalee, you need to do Spartan or you're kicked out because you still have this credit. And I was like, oh, well, I wanted to do it. I'm going to do it. I wasn't like in the shape that I wanted to be, but it was something that I had wanted, and it came to me. Like, I didn't even have to go to it.
Yeah.
That
That's
vision
cool.
came to me.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. And I didn't have anyone there. Like, no one was there. I was by myself, which was just perfect. I met a lot of different people who were there. And I had giants that showed up along the way. Like, I have one of the pictures from one of the gentlemen that helped me, and I call him my hero of Spartan, as he helped me over the inverted wall. Now, I have never done an inverted wall, and I didn't know how scary that was going to be. But yeah, let me tell you.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite get up over the wall because you're upside down, and he had to lift me up and hold me there. And as soon as I got to the top, I was like, holy shit, how the hell am I going to get to the bottom?
Yeah.
And so I was like scared. And so another guy walked around and he's like, it's okay, just flip your legs around and slide down. And you're going to get on this little 1-inch gap, and your foot's going to get caught. And then you just jump down from there. I'm 5'3", so I'm not very tall.
Yeah.
And so this is 11-foot wall, and I'm like, oh. So it's like one of those things in life, like that wall for me, like during the whole event, it was like I just kept back and reflecting on it, like, holy cow, did I just do that? And I had big bruises on my arms that gave that evidence of being stuck there on the wall, and just like, how in the heck am I going to do this? And like, I didn't even know how I was going to get through the event, but I did. And all of it was beautiful. And like right after that wall, it was a mountain to climb. And I'm like, oh, I know how to climb mountains. I can do that piece.
Yeah.
But
isn't that incredible? Like you go through stuff like this. So we have our vision, we start creating, and you go through a course, right? Like you're talking about, you go through the stuff that you didn't think you could do. And then we leave this evidence behind. Like, I did that. We have trophies and medals and shirts and all these things that we've collected along the way, they're just evidence that energy once flowed there. I used to put energy into that thing, and this is my evidence that I did that thing, right? It's no different from a dead tree, right? Like a tree that maybe all of its leaves have fallen off is simply evidence that energy once flowed through that. And crystals and other things that you can see, like, wow, energy flowed through that. And there's evidence left behind that shows us that, energy did flow through that. But for many of us, there's things in our lives where we're just not putting energy into it. So there is no evidence because we haven't done the hard stuff. Like, if you think about that event, you're climbing over that wall. There was a collaboration of a guy that helped you over the wall. Like, I don't do this all alone.
No.
Like, somebody's there to help me, to collaborate with me, to help me get over that wall. But not if I'm sitting at home still, right?
Yeah. Had he not been there, I probably would have just done the burpees and said, okay, I'm good. I'm done. And he's like, nope, you've got to do it. Like, we fail at things 5 times before we get up. and he
Huh.
was not going to let me give up, and he was not going to let me fail. And I was just so grateful for that support and like that dedication and commitment for him to step up and help me over that wall.
Why is it that we perform so different when somebody's like not only watching, because I've had people watch and it's like my performance goes down, right? Too much
Yeah.
Overwatch is like you go the other direction. But when
Yes.
you're accountable to somebody and you know that they're watching your performance and you want to show up, like we
Yeah.
seem to overperform. But when it's just us, it's like, I could take a cheat day. I
I
can,
could do it.
yeah, I can
Yeah.
sit back.
That's your level of commitment too.
Yeah.
And like same thing for each day when we wake up. Do we wake up and do we exercise? Do we, take those vitamins? And
Hmm.
um, it's recreating those habits like you talked about and going into the Urn Cycle.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Urn Cycle.
Yeah. So the earning cycle, if I can remember this, has been a bit since I looked
Yeah.
at it. So the cycle of planting the seed, is this the one where you plant the seed?
Yeah.
And so you kind of have like the spring, and then you have to nurture it. So you have to go out and work and do all the things. So you plant the seed knowing that there's a plan for that thing that you're creating. But then you're out there nurturing it with what it needs. So like the sunshine, this only a billionth of the sun's energy hits the earth, but it's enough to impact everything that we have. But the sun never stops shining because only a billionth of its efforts are paying off for us.
Yeah.
The rest of it goes out into space and it's wasted energy, basically. But it's efficient because of the way it burns. So it's not going to burn out. It's just efficient, but only a billionth of its energy is impacting us. And so when we look at our efforts, a lot of us give up because only a small percentage of our efforts are really going to pay off. Most of our stuff that we create is going to be a failure. I mean, any artist that's out there, they have what are called B tracks, right? And I don't know if this is how it works, but it seems to be the songs that never took off, or you get the one hit wonder and they've got 50 songs, but only one took off.
Yeah.
And I've been writing books and poetry and blog posts and doing all these things for over a decade now. And finally the giants and the smalls start sprouting, taking off. Right. And I don't even know, I have vision for where it will go, but what if it died off? Would I give up and quit? I'd probably go plant another seed, right? I'll find another pathway. But the idea is that we got to nurture it. And then in the fall, you receive it. You got to take it in. And so the thing with fall is you harvest, right? You take in all the hard work. You get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. And then in the winter, you rest.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we're looking at creation, it's you've got to have that planting of the seed. And then from that planting of the seed, the planning and all the preparation that goes into it, the nurturing is the hardest part. It's the summer of your life. It's where you're sweating and you're digging weeds out and you're doing all the hard stuff. And at the end of it, you have the fall. And a lot of people give up. They plant the seed and then they jump to the fall like they should be receiving something, but nobody took care of the garden. It's like we have this expectation that I can just go from spring to fall without the summer. Yeah. Without the work. And then also we don't rest. I mean, there's a rest period in nature. There's a rest period in us. It's like the word purpose means a place to rest, a place to pause. And so when you have a purpose, that means when you get to that purpose and you accomplishment, you're going to rest. Yes. And then you're going to create another purpose, which is another place to rest. And so, but we don't do that. We don't rest and we don't do the hard work. Actually, we're resting in the summer, right? Yeah.
Most people rest in the summer.
In the summer of our creation is what I mean. We rest in the summer of our creation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that bring up for you?
Gosh. Well, I've been there.
Yeah.
By personal experience and just like how our society is. Sorry, Rory is in here.
No, you're good.
But like our society, a little bit, it teaches us to just like give up. If you look at everything, it's like that instant gratification. You get things right here. You scroll all day. Things are just right at your fingertips. You could look up on Google. And when it comes to actually accomplishing and doing it, it's not giving up. And I've had to learn about being 100% person and being one that shows up and keeps their word. We just had coming off of a great event talking about our word and what we manifest and keeping our word. And if, just a minute, buddy.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really powerful to hear Steve Hardison talk about the word and what it is we create. And I know that I've been in that space of, giving my promise beforehand in just saying, yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. And not keeping that word. And so I've had to eat that, and I've had to overcome that. And
let's play with that for a minute. Okay. Let's play with that.
Yeah.
Because you have your agreements and your commitments, right? A commitment is what you do. Agreement is what you say you'll do. Integrity is the difference between the two. So when you say, I'm going to do this thing, and then you don't do anything at all, and so nothing comes out of it, you have zero integrity.
Yeah.
If you say you're going to do a thing and every time you speak it, it comes out, you have 100% integrity.
Yeah.
That means the delta, the difference between what you say you'll do and what you do, there's no gap, right?
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity when you find that I'm at 30% integrity, right? I say I'll do this and this is what shows up. It's actually 30% of what I say. Great. What do you need to adjust? Because all you're doing is trying to close the gap. So if I'm out of integrity at 30, integrity isn't a morality thing. Integrity is different from that. Integrity is simply what you say you do and what you do are two different things.
Yeah.
And when they're not, then you're in 100% integrity. So closing the gap is simply, if I'm at 30%, what do I need to do to get to 50? What do I need to do to get to 70? What do I need to do to get to 100%? It's not shameful. I think that's where we go is, wow, you said you would do this and you didn't do this. You're a pile of shit, right? That's what we do.
That's
right?
what we do. And then that's what perpetuates that. What gets you stuck in that insanity cycle.
Yeah.
And out of change and out of growing and changing who you are.
Yeah.
And so learning to actually speak and learning what your true desires are. You talk about desires in the book as well. And I love the word desire is it means of the Father.
Okay.
And some of these desires that you have were put in your heart before you even came to this world, I believe. And it's of the Father. So you get these visions and you get these things that are just so insane. And you think, oh my gosh, there's no way that I could ever accomplish that. But then I love how you talk about who you're being and who you're showing up as. And then going in and creating from that aspect that, no, I can actually do this.
Well, and your creation of you is your biggest task because your creation of you is everything. And it's going to create everything. So we have a brand that says be to do, BETODO, right? Because who you're being is going to create your doing. And so it's not the other way around. We have it wrong. Like if you do the thing, you'll become that. That's not how it works. It's the other way around. Who you're being creates your doing. And so I have a masterful mentor, Townsend Warlaw, who teaches that. And he teaches that whole way of declaring and creating yourself before you go into the doing. So who's doing the doing, right? Who's the creator that's doing the doing? Because that's more important than the doing. Because who shows up? I could have two guys on a job and one guy is like, I'm a badass. I'm going to tear this up. I'm going to be awesome. And the other guy's like, I'm tired today. I don't really feel like doing anything. Same task. They would have different outcomes because of who they're being in that environment. The event's the same. The setup's the same. It's the distinction of the motorcycle ride that Steve Hardison took people on. So he's a wild man on a motorcycle. He's crazy. And he goes and grabs the CEO of Keeps. And I'll start with Steve Chandler. He takes Steve Chandler. He goes on a ride. He's going 100 miles an hour. He's weaving in and out of traffic. And Steve Chandler, they come back and Steve's like, that was the best ride of my life. He throws the CEO of this company on his bike and starts going same route, same track, same experience, comes back and he's like, you're a effing madman. You're trying to kill me. Don't you ever put me on a bike again. Well, what was the distinction? Why were there two different experiences with a similar event?
Yeah.
It's because we're totally making it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's us.
So
We're the
it's
it factor.
us. Yeah, we are the factor. So when you create yourself first, everything you do from there is going to be impacted. So that's where the art of accomplishment comes in, is it's a creation of you, the giants and the smalls. Is it's a way of being. It's the journey that each of us goes through to stop playing small in our lives, because it starts internally and moves outward.
Yeah.
Like, I envision, imagine you have a lake in front of you and it's glass, and you're handed a boat, and each of us are handed our own boat, and our creations are the wake behind us. And so we're out there zipping around on the lake, and there's nothing out there. I mean, we can create any kind of wake we want.
Yeah, we could.
Right. And so, but what you leave behind, the evidence of things that you've accomplished, is your wake. Right. But out in front of you, we tend to think that our wake is who we are.
Yeah.
And so we let it guide what we do out here. And the truth is that this out here is glass. It's not there. It's made up. And it's made up by the driver of that boat, you. So when you start to choose to drive your damn boat, your wake is going to shift. The stuff that comes out of you is going to shift. Your evidence of energy that once flowed there is going to shift. You're going to have a different life. And what happens is, well, I can't because of this, or they programmed me to do that. I saw that as a comment. They programmed us to do that. If you're aware that they programmed you to do that, you can do something about it. That means that you are aware that they programmed you to do it, which means that you have to take your life and you get to decide where your boat goes.
Yeah.
So I am my own, right? I love that. I am my own, right?
Yep. And I love this one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
You are entirely up to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything about you is up to you. And how we show up is totally up to us. It's up to us individually. So who cares what you're taught? I know people that were taught some pretty terrible things in childhood that created some phenomenal lives. So at what point do you wake up and you start taking ownership, 100% ownership of your life? Because that's where things change. Yeah. Because nobody is responsible. Go ahead. I'll keep ranting. So
I love this. I'm loving this. And I love also in the book, you talk about choosing up.
Yeah.
Your being in that moment and choosing up a thought, and where you go, and you may be coming from that certain standpoint. Kind of, you talked about the wake in the boat, and maybe you've always been choosing this wake back here, and we tend to live in the past. We tend to go back to who we've always been, because that's where we remember. That's who we've always shown up as. We carry that story with us, is this is me, and I was injured in the past, instead of coming from this now present moment, instead of being in the future, because we tend to go too far forward in the future. Well, at least I did. And so then playing in those, well, this is now. And then choosing up your thoughts. So then going to back to like, where's your thoughts coming from? Where are you at? And when you're at that 0 point decision, you talked a little bit about that. And you talked about how in that moment you get to choose up. And if we could just become aware and like hold ourselves back just a little bit and allow ourselves, like, we don't always need an instant response. We don't always need to respond to someone. We can take that little pause and say, you know what, let me think about that for just a moment, or just take that pause, and then go in, and then from there at that 0 point decision, say, you know what, I'm going to choose something different, and I'm going to choose up, and then go in as if. We talked a little bit about the as if principle, and choosing up into that and saying, oh, what if I could create this? Or, well, then, you know what, let me just be that and show up as if that was already the possibility and already the choice and the decision that I have already made.
Yeah. So when I'm coaching clients, right? So we'll be sitting there, they'll bring their story, whatever that story. I don't care what your story is. It's not that I don't care. It doesn't matter what your story is. You make it up. If I were to pull out your belief system and set it on the table and shine a light on it, there would be nothing there. It wouldn't exist, because it's a collection of neural pathways that you've created over time that are impacted by emotion. And so it's a thought tied to emotion in a cluster. It's simply that. And so it affects all of your perception and everything. So when they come in and they have their story, they'll tell their story and they'll just go off. Well, this happened and that happened. This is why this is that. And I say to them, look, if I were buying your story right now, I would buy it because it would be a book and it would be this thing is totally believable. I'd be like, that is a phenomenal story. I would pay you money for that story, but it's bullshit. It's all made up. And so if it's made up, why are we continuing to carry forward the same story when we have an opportunity? I've seen people that have been sexually abused, raped, that have told a story of success and power and strength that came from that, right?
Yeah.
Versus people that are using that story as martyrdom and victimness. And I can get both sides of that story. There's validity and power in both sides. I see that.
Yeah.
Right. But they're still at that choice. They get to decide their story. This is your story. You are writing your fucking life. Why are you going to write it less powerful than you are? Because that's not who you are at your core.
That's not who you are at your core.
So the first thing I would do with anybody that's sitting across from me is to wake you up. Like if you could see it, that's how you're behaving and that's what's showing up in your life. When you can see that, you can do something about it. But until you can see it, you're not going to do anything. And so to wake people up to how they're showing up in life is my first step. Is you have got to wake up to the way you're playing life, because they don't even know it. They're saying the words and they're telling the story, and it's so damn believable.
Yeah, they're selling you it.
It's just not true, you know. It's
I had experienced both those things that you had talked about, and I have been there in that realm. And well, this is who I've been. This is where I was. This is what I went through, and changing that aspect and changing that story, and we can recreate that story. I kind of want to dive in just a little bit.
Yeah.
If you're okay going just a little bit over.
I'm totally good. Whatever serves. So yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
I've been playing a little bit with the gratitude aspect and growing and expanding through that, like allowing ourselves to go back and process the things that we didn't process through the heart, and finding the gratitude in those lessons to use that as a propeller to go forward to expanding who you've been, and realizing oh, what did I not, what did this experience teach me? And where in this, where was I? What did I show up as? And just kind of reviewing just a little bit of where you've been and where you want to go. Kind of like you talked about that gap that you have. You're 100%, 0%, and finding the gratitude in that lesson of, oh, this is what this experience taught me. And then using that gratitude as like a propellant to kind of go forward and change, and to go into that change.
Yeah. I love what Hugh says here, living in gratitude or looking for gratitude. I think it's a combination of both. You look for it because who you're being is going to affect what you're looking for. And so if you're being somebody that doesn't really care about gratitude, you're not going to look for it. It's like somebody who doesn't really care about miracles or anything else isn't going to be looking for it. It's just not going to show up in your life because you're just not even conscious of it. It's not who you are.
Yeah.
And so I look at gratitude as a vital step. How many times have people experienced great loss, and the first thing they do, and I've got my kids banging on the door here. The first thing they do is they say, well, at least I have this, at least this, right? You hear that often, at least I got to spend a little bit of extra time here. They have a great loss. And, Angie Gar Barnett, Bennett Barnett, I don't know. And she's a beautiful human. She had an amputation, and she starts with, at least I can do this, right? She'll go to the movie. At least I can sneak candy into the movie theater. And that's a form of gratitude, right? It's like, when you look at what remains, when you get into reality as it is, then you can do something about it. We live in our delusions, and happiness is a delusion. If you think about it, when you get into depression, you step into reality as it is. And most people don't like that. They don't want to see life as it is. We feel happy in our delusion. And so to come into reality, when people get in that depressed state, it's designed to get you to pull back energy so you're not wasting energy. but
Wow.
it's designed to get you to reflect on what's going on, which needs to put you in reality, because from there you've got to decide, okay, where's our next delusion, basically, because then we go back to being happy because we move in to creating something new, right? We dream about a future and then we work toward that. But when we get depressed, we pull back our energy and we see reality as it is. And so that's not very fun. And so gratitude is one of those things that really pulls us into a space of appreciating that, yeah, it is what it is. It's okay that it is what it is. It's more of that acceptance thing of it's okay that it is this. And I'm grateful that it wasn't that. It could be a lot worse, or I'm grateful for what remains. And that opens the door to uncertainty and creation, because now you can start to put things out there that maybe you never saw before because you were in your delusion. So coming back to reality is a great wake-up call. Depression's a great wake-up call. It'll really smack you in the face and just say, look, some things aren't working.
I love that, because a lot of people do. They'll stay in that depression. They'll go in, they'll numb out. This is where like drugs, alcohol, tuning out TV, scrolling the Instagram or Facebook, and instead of facing what it is that they need to face.
And
that's,
I mean, all of our problems are right here. Like all of my problems are right here. This guy, my perceptions. So there's nobody out there that has they can impact me and cause some temporary emotional movement inside of me, but I have a final say of whether that stays or not. It can be temporary, it can be transient, but many of us, we have that hit us, and then we're like, that's who I am, and then we become that, and we put that back out in the world like that's who we are.
Oof. I love that. Kind of wanted to talk just a little bit about reaping what you sow, and also about that impact and attitudes. I think we kind of touched a little bit on it, but
let's do that
a bit more.
Yeah, so affect, right? Affect is the influence of emotions on you. Attitude is your emotions coming out of you. And so affect is what hits you, attitude is what comes out of you. And so somebody could have affect and they might have a really poor attitude, and that their emotions hit you. And so that causes an impact, right? So think about it like an asteroid's coming through space and it hits the Earth. Boom. Big wave goes out and it really causes a lot of damage. That's affect. That's an impact. So when somebody else's emotions hit you and they cause an impact, it does cause a disruption in your energetic field. But your attitude is what centers and restores everything to homeostasis. So who you're being, right, is what's going to determine how impactful that affect is. So somebody could have a really bad attitude and be in your space, and then that bleeds over and you start to feel that coming in, and you could start to become them if you have a really weak attitude. And so whatever they do, now you do because of them. Now they did that to me, so now I'm this because of them, right? So there's no ownership in that. The attitude is that thing hits me, and now I've got to decide, what am I going to do with this? Because that's transmuting the energy. That's turning it around and creating something else with it. So when their negative energy hits you, your attitude is going to say, look, this is who I am at my core. So yes, that impacted me. Yes, it spun me up for a minute. But my attitude is one of those where I'm not going to put that back out there.
I love that.
So we have a say. We still have a say. You know,
yes, we do.
Somebody could come up, Shawnalee, punch you right in the face, and you could smile about it. You could have like a positive attitude about it, right?
You could.
It wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be fun. It would hurt. Right.
Fun. I could choose to like either punch him back or not.
Right.
And it is that attitude. I do. I love that. Who you're being at your core goes back to who you're being in the moment, goes back to your affirmations. It goes back to what you expect to do, how you expect to show up in this situation.
Yeah.
And playing that out.
Well, and we do have things that are hard. Things hit us. They're hard. They're hard, and they can be impactful, and they can really shut you down. I've had some things where they hit so hard that I go into that survival mode. And years ago, it was years that I was stuck in that cycle.
Yeah.
Now it's just moments. Now it's just, I've learned the tools and I've practiced to where it'll hit me and I'm good. I'm resilient. I'm bouncing back faster than ever. But in the past, it would impact me for decades. Like it was crazy because I didn't know how to work with it. I didn't know how to turn it around. And so learning the skills, learning tools like Barry McDonough's book for anxiety is phenomenal because he teaches you tools, calming the emotional storm, right? On DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and how to manage difficult emotions. Every single person should know how to do that.
They should.
So if you don't have it, go get it, right? Like there's nothing that's not available to us.
There's nothing that's not available to us.
Go to the effing store and buy your freaking skills that you know what I mean? Just go develop them because it's up to each of us to do that because they are accessible.
They are accessible. It reminds me just what you said about like Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn always said, here's somebody who experienced something in their life. It took them 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to go through something and write that book. And here you can go, you could pick it up. It's $35 or however much it is.
Yeah.
And read about it.
Right.
And be able to expand yourself and learn through other people. I think we do a lot of that. And one of the things you also talk about in the book is learning through other people. What did they do? And if not, hire a coach or hire a mentor to help get you where you need to go.
Yeah, you really want to shortcut the process, go get a coach.
Yeah.
And somebody that's been doing it, and is you can tell. I mean, there's a difference between somebody that's just like, here, try these steps and call me in a week, right? Versus somebody that really wakes you up and creates movement in you. That if you never had another conversation again, if you had one conversation with them, it would last the rest of your life. There's people like that. And knowing the difference, right?
Yeah.
They're both useful. However, one is going to be more impactful for a longer period. And I mean, you're not looking for a friend. If you want to hire a friend, and I'm not talking about coaches as friends, I'm talking about if you want somebody to be your friend, then go pay for a buddy, right? But if you're hiring a coach, you want somebody that's going to, in a loving way, smack the shit out of you. Like they're going to wake you up. They're not going to physically do any of that. They're just going to wake you up and then help you to step into your power. Because when you do that, your world changes because of who you're being, who you're showing up as. When you feel empowered, your world is empowered. And so I think it's worth it to be choosy over who you have coach you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And because, coaches and mentors, I've had those that have a lasting impact, and they always go back to who you're being.
Yeah.
Being in that moment. And then one of the things that I always had struggled with before was the belief aspect.
Yeah.
And it's hard until it's not.
Yeah. A belief is simply what you hold dear. That's what the word means, to hold dear. I think it's the German Glauben, which means to hold dear. And so what are you holding on to that is so important? I mean, I see people keep trinkets that are just garbage. Why would you keep that? It's stuff that doesn't serve you. I mean, I'm not talking about things that are sentimental. I'm talking about the stuff that's not useful.
Yeah.
So we have beliefs that are not useful.
We
hold on to them like they're gold.
We do hold on to them like they're gold.
We put them in a china cabinet, like a curio. And it's like, this is special to me. I like not making money. It's special to me. So we hold on, not just money, it's other things. Oh, I can't do this because, and then we put it in a curio cabinet, put it on display, and then we tell everybody about it. Hey, check this out.
And so then therefore that's what you're recreating over and over again as what you're speaking. And then you can't get out of that. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the 4 agreements and how we're domesticated, and we grow up and they say, hey, this is a tree. And you make that agreement. Yes, this is a tree.
Yeah.
You also make that agreement with the other aspects of it, of like taking on somebody else's belief about you and how that is. And so you can make that a belief. And so how many times did I do that in my past? And so then changing the beliefs, we can make the agreement to then therefore change that and change what we believed prior, and not put those in the curio cabinet, take those down and discard them, and create that new belief, create that new firing and wiring that you talked about.
Yeah.
And
I think our greatest opportunity to be giant is everywhere that we're not.
yes.
Right. But
Waking up to those pieces that we're not.
Some of us ride the coattails of our accomplishments, and we do one giant thing and then we're done. Like, yeah, I checked that box. But the challenge is we're complex humans, and we have facets of ourselves where there is availability to grow. Like, where you're not giant is your greatest opportunity for growth. And I have a lot of areas where I don't feel giant, right? I feel small.
Yeah.
And so really stepping into and looking for, you got to look for it. If you're not looking for it, you're not going to see it. But I love to look for the weeds.
Yeah, the weeds.
Yeah. And let me know if we're good on time. Are we?
Yeah, we're good on time.
Because
So
I'll keep going. But
you're good. No, I love it. Yeah, so it's going back to those beliefs and who you are and who you've been. And I'm sorry, somebody just came in.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Totally unplanned. But yeah, so invaders, you guys. Yeah. Planting those seeds and planting who you've been and who you're being.
Yeah.
And going up and accomplishing. So, like, what is your biggest advice for people in when they want to accomplish things? What is the biggest thing that you would like to tell them?
Well, so number one is just decide to do it. Like, decide. The word decide comes from decidere, which means to cut off.
Yeah.
So in decision, it means you're cutting off. And so number one is decide to do it.
Yeah. Because otherwise it eats up too much energy.
Yeah, because you go back and forth and you waffle between what you think you want to do and what you're currently doing, and there's no decision. So making a decision, a cutting off is going to be the most powerful thing you can do. Things will either work for you or they won't work for you, but nothing's going to go if you don't decide, if there's not a cutting off. And so really diving into it would be the biggest thing. And then really give yourself some room for being messy. Like, you are going to be messy. You are going to be terrible at things. Like, you have to be willing to suck at something long enough to get good at it. Like, you got to give yourself room for that. And so having some grace for being terrible at things is going to be important. And then stick with it long enough to win.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that happens, and lean on others. It's not that you lean on them to do the job for you. I can't go to the gym and give you my muscles. It just doesn't work that way. Right. So, but enrolling others in your vision and having others give capacity to your dreams means that now, instead of just your wake, you have others that are joining your wake, and it becomes bigger and bigger because of their help. And you do that in return to them too. So that collaboration, that support of each other is vital. Like, you're not going to do anything alone. Nothing I've done has been alone. It's not the Nick show. You know, I wouldn't be where I am without Ryan and Nicole and Melissa and Alyssa. And I mean, we had the League of Giants and all these other people that helped us to get to where we are. And then we look at all of the tribe members that show up in comments and share the content out. And there's nothing done alone. Like, I don't do this alone. So remember that. You don't have to do it alone.
You don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
Thinking of people around you.
Yeah. It's empowering when you're out there stepping and working and you enroll people into your way of being. Then they want to support. They want to be a part of it. It's different from expecting them to do it for you. Do you know what I mean? That's a different energy. Yeah. This is, you're doing the work, and then they're coming in to support. Hey, let me help you out here. You know, have you thought of this? Yeah. So is that good? I mean, I'll keep going, but I know we're over time.
We are over time, but that was perfect. I love it. And having those people come into your vision and bring them along and stepping up to who you're being.
Yeah.
And always go back to that and just remind yourself of your great potential. Going back to your book of the smalls and the giants, like who you're being and that you can do it. So,
yeah, I love that with you. Even the higher authority desires relationship. We all need that connection, right?
Yeah.
I love that. And so, yeah, we're not alone.
We're not alone.
No.
Yes.
But
All right.
it's up to us to keep stepping. So anyway, yeah.
I'll let you go. I know you got somebody there and I got somebody here, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you so much and thank you. We could keep going for
And thank you for all the comments. I love the comments, and
I love all the comments.
it's just a testament to those that are commenting. I know there are a lot of people that go through hard things, but they still show up and they still re-engage, and just keep stepping, like keep re-engaging. That's a big thing, is when you get knocked down, get back in the game in some form.
That. Because there's many times that I didn't keep re-engaging and keep going until long enough until you suck at something.
Yeah.
Not suck at
not
something.
the other way. Yeah, keep going until you're terrible at it. That's my motto, right?
Yeah. No. You get good at it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Shawnalee. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect.
All right. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you.